can't imagine what we
My
can.
eyes were, my eyes were.
Nick Sirianni Live, presented by Premier Orthopedic.
Oh yeah, Bob wanted me to get milk.
Not as bad as middle eight.
Touche. I was looking for.
When the
All right, Jeff got me there. Jeff, that was good. That was good.
when the tush push survived the attempts to get it banned in the offseason, did you anticipate that it would come up again throughout the year? And I don't know what your reaction is to when all this is going on, how you plan to deal with it throughout the year.
Right now, right, we don't have to deal with that right now. We got enough things that we got to deal with now, and so obviously you're always working to improve the play. You're always working through different things to complement it. They're always working through different things that if you don't have it, right? Right now we do, and that was that. And so again, I try to only control the things I can control, not anything that's out of my control.
The double positive, you've been talking a lot about that. The turnover part of it has been great. The explosive plays haven't been there yet. Those two things are sort of out of balance at times. You know, you may have to take some chances to get some explosive plays. How do you sort of balance that?
Yeah, you can still, be protecting the football is not just, in the passing game. And, any concept we have, it has different elements to it where, you're pushing the ball down the field sometimes, you're throwing it short sometimes, you're pushing it into the intermediate level sometimes. But that's what, you trust Jalen in those scenarios to make the right decisions with the football. And he's done a great job of that and has been very, very efficient. And I think, it's everything. It's the explosive plays are not just in the passing game. They're in the running game. They're in the screen game as well. And so first and foremost, we'll always want to try to take the football away and protect the football. That's always first. And then with the explosive part of it is just, taking what they give you when they give it to you and, in the run game. So I think you can do both. And I think, throughout the years, we've done a really good job in both those areas. It just happened to be through our first two games, we're a little bit lower than what we've normally been. And, we're working like crazy to make sure that we can be efficient and also being explosive. And I think that's the goal of a lot of offenses, all offenses, to be truthful. So, go out there and practice, and that's where you get the confidence in the game is from practice to run the plays that you run and call the plays that you call, and the players have the confidence that they have.
With the run concepts that involve Jalen, Kevin said those are in the playbook. Going into the season, did you know that really wouldn't be kind of in the opportunities in the first couple of games? Was that
again, that's 2 games in. I try not to get too, again, when we do self-scout or we do scouting of the defense, opponents of the defense that we're playing, you look back onto last year's stuff. You also, because there's such a small sample size, we got to remember that this is a 17-game season, and not to overreact on things that have happened just through the first 2 games. We found ways to win the first 2 games, and we know we have to get better at a lot of things, but there's a progression to it, and so that's what our goal is and our focus is right now.
The job the offensive line has done protecting Jalen. I mean, obviously you guys invest a lot of money and resources in those guys, and they've got credentials, but I mean, have you been even more impressed from what you've seen these first 2 games from them than you thought?
Yeah, we always talk about winning the game up front. We talk about the double positive, but we also talk about winning the game on the offense and defensive line. It doesn't matter what level of football you are in; that it starts with those guys. And speaking of the offensive line, obviously, Lane, Landon, Jordan, Cam, Tyler, and have done a great job. Fred got in last game and did a really good job on the play that he was in, and he's given us good moments as a backup, and so has prior across the league. And so just have a ton of confidence in them. Stout does a great job of preparing them for the things that they'll see during the game. And what we naturally see as offense is things that you don't prepare for because you get a lot of unscouted looks. And so I really think that speaks to their ability to think as players. They're obviously there are these great physical specimens. I can't tell you how many times I'll see somebody in public and they'll be like, "Oh, you're a lot taller than I thought you were." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm 6'2", but I stand next to Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson and all these guys. But and Landon, but what you see is from those guys is obviously they're phenomenal football players, but they're able to think through things on the fly, and that's really important at every position, particularly at that offensive line. They've played good football, to date, and we expect that because they're really good football players, and I can't speak enough about what they mean to this football team, and all those guys. And Tyler stepped in and has done a really nice job so far. And I think that's a tribute to Tyler, obviously himself, and the work that he put in throughout the last couple years being here, but particularly this offseason. Like, I can't tell you how many times, if you're in a lift in the OTAs, hey, how did it look down there? And Nando's telling me, yeah, Tyler Steen had another great day. And so, and he's really worked his butt off to be the new guy in there. But the guys have confidence in him.
Hey, Nick, what did you see on film from Cam Latu and the handful of snaps he played? And could you see a bigger role for him if Dallas is unable to go?
Yeah, Cam obviously is playing fullback for us, and he is a physical dude. And it's exciting, physical plays that show up on tape and that show during the game, that brings a lot of energy to your team. And I think that, he's done a nice job. He's, even back to preseason games, like he did a really good job on special teams, and you could see that physicality. You see it in practice. You see it in the game, and so there's always we love the way the physicality he plays with. Strong, big dude that loves to play physical, and there's always room for guys that play with that physicality on a football team. I always love those guys that play like that, and he's doing a nice job.
In your experience with the backs who've had big years, whether it was Jamal Charles, Melvin Gordon, what's that next year like in terms of the way defenses play them?
Yeah, I think they, obviously, I think a lot of, not obviously, but I think a lot of defensive coaches are focused on how to stop the run first. That's the first thing they go through. How do we stop the run? We've had, back to Miles Sanders, just since I've been here, Miles made the Pro Bowl off a great year in 22. Then DeAndre made it in 23. Saquon made it in 24. And so when you get that, when you know you have that weapon in the backfield, you're going to get some unscouted looks, kind of what we talked about earlier. And that's natural. That's the realities of having good players and good offenses. You're going to get some unscouted looks. So, just being able to sort through those things in game, having smart guys out there, like we talked about with the offensive line. And yeah, I don't get too wrapped up into, 1 year look like this. Next, Saquon's a phenomenal football player. He's not any less of a football player because he rushed for 2,000 yards last year. He's the same guy, but getting better. He's continuing to get better. And so, yeah, I guess I don't ever look at it that way. We have to find ways to be able to, get runs started because Saquon's, we haven't hit the 50-yarder yet, and I think he led the league in them last year. But those come, especially with a guy like Saquon, because he's able to do things in the open field that other guys can't.
Nick, when you're yesterday that Carter need to get in better shape,
and yet he played like 80% of the snaps. Did you guys know going in that conditioning was an issue? Should that have affected the amount, or was it partly also because of the heat and humidity?
Yeah, we knew that it was going to be all hands on deck for that game. Where actually we prepared for that, like it was going to be a little bit hotter. It ended up being some cloud cover that was good, but we were prepared for that. He's working his butt off to be in the best shape of his life, just like all our guys. And so we know that if we're in great shape, then we can play relentless effort and we can play with great detail. It's hard to play with great detail and relentless effort when you're not in great shape. So that's always a work in progress for every player throughout the year, is just to get yourself into game shape, because, get yourself into game shape and then maintain it, because, there is no substitute for the games. Like, you can run as many, gassers as you want, or, be on the Versa climber or the bike, as much as you want, but there is no substitute for playing in the game. And so, you get in better shape as you play. We prepare them as much as we possibly can to get them there, knowing that they're not going to play a full game ever in practice or in the preseason, if at all in preseason. But that's what you're trying to, focus on, whether we do long drives or whether we do a conditioning drill with, as far as the way we play, because there's no substitute of actually playing live scenarios, and you try to simulate that as much as you possibly can.
It's kind of a big picture question, but when you and Kevin were building the offense for coming into this year, how do you balance, like, this is what me and Kevin believe in and we want the offense to look like, versus let's build an offense for the players that we have and what they're best at?
It's always players. That goes back to, if you go back to Shane and myself and Kevin and all the guys in Stout and Jason, like Shane's offense in San Diego and that he ran, and the offense that I was involved in Indianapolis, look different, right? It's always got to be about the players, and it doesn't. There's a lot of great schemes, across the NFL. I think the best coaches, in my opinion, are the ones that have core philosophies of their scheme, but fit their players. Because that's what it's always about. And I learned that from Larry Karras a long, long time ago, that it's, you may think that you want this, he always say, players, plays, formations, right? And you may want to run this certain scheme, or you may want to run that certain scheme, but does it fit your players the best way? I've said this about, brag on my brother for a second. My brother Jay, went far in the playoffs in the pro system, got a new group of guys, ran a spread system, won 2 state championships that way. Those guys graduated. Didn't have the same type of guys, and then they went to the state championship running the wing tee. I'm like, that to me is how I was raised in this, and that to me is always players over plays. Always.
You mentioned two more?
Nick, with the Rams this week, that might be the best wide receiver duo that you see all year. What is it about them, individually speaking, that just brings them to a different level?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good group. I think I have so much respect for Coach McVay. I think you see it all over his tape, the offensive mind that he is. And then you can see it with the detail that his team plays with. You can tell that his receivers, he's coached, and I know they have a good receiver coach too. But his receivers are coached up and really coached up. And I see that, you can see Sean's background, that he's done receivers. And so I've always thought that about Sean's guys. And now, you also have, excuse me, you also have 2 really good players there. And really, Tutu Atwell is really good too. Puka is a big, strong, physical guy that uses his body strength really well. Devontae Adams, has been doing what he does for a long time in the NFL. I always thought him and Keenan Allen were very similar type players. And obviously I coached Keenan, and, you know, their ability, their quickness in and out of breaks, their ability to get off the line of scrimmage, their ability just to catch the football. You know, this is a challenge, you know, that we'll have to be ready for. And Stafford can get them, all those guys, the football, and they got good running backs. They got good tight ends, solid offensive line. Just so much respect for this football team. And so much respect for, you know, Coach McVay and their staff. We've worked with some of those guys too on that defensive side. I think, you know, it's been a while, but I thought Chris Shula was a hell of a coach, and Giff Smith and Greg Williams, and they're just, yeah, you can just see, when you put on a tape and you have that type of respect for their coaches, you can see it early on.
Last one, guys.
Nick, how well equipped is Kevin to deal with the criticism that comes with being in that OC chair?
Yeah, that's a good question, Dave. I think one of the hardest positions to coach, I'll go there first. One of the hardest positions to coach is the position that your coordinator or your head coach played and coached. And so Kevin has dealt with a lot of my criticism throughout the years. And he has thick skin. And you have to have thick skin because, you know, obviously, you know, all you got to think, you got to do the things that you can do to control, the things that you can control. You can't focus on anything else. So we know there's going to be criticism, and we know what we signed up for. And I think Kevin's got a great mindset on that. He always has. You know, I've used Kevin, full transparency. I've used Kevin in moments where he's like, man, you need to, he can be my mentor at times as far as, you know, helping me get through things. And that's one reason I value Kevin so much. Obviously the football mind, all those different things is why he got the job, but I've always used Kevin to, you know, talk through things, and we all need that. We all need to be able to talk through things. And so I have no question in my mind just through the past 8 years with Kevin that he's built for that.
All right. Thanks, folks. We got